All right, this is going to be a review of SummerSlam 2020. The first match on the main show was Bayley defending her championship against Asuka. Sasha Banks was at ringside. This was a good way to start off the show. I understand why this had to open it up. This way you could give Asuka a little bit more of a break before the other match with Sasha Banks. But, yeah, good match. This is the first match I think a lot of people ended up seeing with the Thunderdome experience. And at first, it looked really cool. The atmosphere was, quite engaging. I would say that this is definitely one of the best matches that Bayley's had since she turned heel. Very competitive match. They went for more of a storytelling thing with the Asuka matches here. Basically the story of the match was that Sasha basically sacrificed herself so Bayley could end up winning this match. And, the finish definitely came into play, once we got to the other Asuka match later on in the show. But, yeah, I just thought Bayley and Asuka, this is a good competitive match. This is a good match in terms of knowing you have to conserve energy, for later on in the show. And you could still put on another solid match right there. But, yeah, I really enjoyed it. Definitely one of the brightest spots on the show. Not bad at all. Next up, you had the Street Profits taking on Andrade and Angel Garza with Zelina Vega at ringside. Yeah, Zelina Vega was kind of a pain in the ass. She got more in the way, and that allowed the Street Profits to win the match. I believe it was Montez Ford hit a beautiful, frog splash in midair where he actually, was able to, switch sides. And, you haven't seen anyone do something like that since Rob Van Dam. So that looked really cool. Kevin Owens is actually at commentary wearing a Street Profits t-shirt. That kind of raises an eyebrow in terms of what they're going to do with Kevin Owens' character in the future. It seemed kind of random for him to be there. But yeah, this is okay. This was good for a Raw match. I wouldn't say it was SummerSlam worthy. And we move on from there. Next up, we have Mandy Rose taking on Sonya Deville. I believe they changed the stipulation to a no disqualification match where the loser leaves WWE. This was advertised as a hair versus hair match a couple weeks ago. But, I haven't seen a lot of the build-up with Mandy and Sonya. I did notice that Sonya had cut a lot of great promos on SmackDown. I mean, you could argue that in terms of females, she's cut some of the best promos of the year on Mandy Rose, with her being there just because of the looks and maybe too much of a Barbie doll. But, the story of the match is that Mandy was out to prove Sonya wrong and that she definitely deserved to be there. This is another, you've seen these in NXT and how many, the Tegan Knox storyline comes to mind. This is just very similar to that, where you had two friends that eventually split up over jealousy. And, but this match right here, the problem with it was it felt like a loser leaves WWE match. A lot of times when someone's leaving, they kind of overcompensate to make the person that's staying look stronger, and it just definitely had that feeling to it. You just had this just didn't feel as competitive and as engaging as it should have been. I think these two could have had a much better match if it was a situation where, neither of them were leaving and they were going to stay on the roster. I think they really could have gotten, Otis came out after the match was over, but I kept thinking, this could have been a situation where Otis could have played a huge factor in it, but because of the stipulation, you just knew he probably wasn't going to get involved. It just wouldn't have made sense from a storyline standpoint. But yeah, I mean, it was okay for what it was. It didn't get too much time, but I just don't think the match was really indicative of how personal and how awesome some of the promos were in this feud. So I guess Sonya's leaving for whatever the reason. I'm not sure, but yeah. Move on to the next match. We get Seth Rollins coming out there with Buddy Murphy to take on Dominik Mysterio, coming out there with Rey Mysterio. Yeah, so really a lot of good segments before this match with Dominik and Rey. Mysterio is great at talking from the heart. So some of Mysterio's best promos came after Eddie's death, in my opinion. And we had another great segment between Rey and his son, where he just said to him, He said, "I know you're going to do amazing, son. I just know it." And it just came off really genuine, really, really good. And it's tough. It's tough to follow in the footsteps of a father. It's not very easy. I think Dominik is in a great situation, though. He's got parents that love him. He doesn't have to worry about dealing with a stepmother or any type of bullshit like that. So, yeah, man, you just kind of... I thought Dominik looked. I mean, Dominik did look nervous. I would agree with that. But I still thought this was just a great drama. This is some of the best drama that's taken place at a SummerSlam in a long time. It was, just, a lot of people just played their roles. You had good supporting roles. You had Murphy, trying to, take Dominik's eye out. You had Angie, Rey Mysterio's wife, come out, which. She played a huge part in the match. She's we've seen her in the WWE for years. So I definitely thought it made sense for her to come out. But yeah, Dominik looked good though, man. He punches almost like Bret Hart. I mean, he's got great punches. He was able to deliver some beautiful leg scissors and arm drags. You could definitely tell he's a disciple of Rey Mysterio. When Rey Mysterio is your father, it's like having Eddie Guerrero as your father. Your father is someone that grew up in the wrestling ring, so you could definitely see the experience of being the son of a legend has definitely paid dividends. He's not a bad worker at all. But for him to be thrown into the fire with this first match being at a SummerSlam, yeah, it's a tough spot to be in. But yeah, Seth and Dominik, I felt like this was the second best match of the night. Rollins was really interesting though. He came out with the Halloween Havoc attire that Rey Mysterio had, so I thought that was cool. It just felt like Rollins was just so relaxed and at home here. Like we've seen Rollins go from this kid that challenged Nigel right out of nowhere, took him to the limit, and to see him become take on the Kurt Angle role that Angle took on with Shane McMahon, where just a lot of trash talking. Didn't really think that Dominik was in his league. I think there was even a spot where we actually gave him the head for for Dominik put on the headlock. But yeah, just great stuff between these guys. It got violent. The transition into the curb stomp to end the match was beautiful. Just everything about it. Just great drama. I wouldn't say I would ever, I'm not going to say it's a match of the year candidate. I'm not going to say this was amazing. I'm not even going to say it reached the 4-star level, but it was just a lot of fun for what it was. It was definitely one of the highlights of the show, without a doubt. Next up, we move on to Asuka taking on Sasha Banks. Bayley was actually at ringside here. And the story of the match was that Bayley just didn't do for Sasha what Sasha did for her earlier in the match. That's kind of the story that they told. But I thought Asuka and Sasha was actually the better match here compared to Asuka and Bayley. I definitely think Asuka and Sasha have great chemistry. I think they have an amazing match in them. Like if they had a match down the road where there wasn't any storylines or interference, I just think they could have a monumental 4.5-star quality match. But yeah, I felt like the match at Extreme Rules was probably better because they didn't have to worry about conserving energy. The Extreme Rules match, I felt like they had more time to really experiment out there. But a lot of people hated the Extreme Rules finish. This came off a little bit better. I just thought the match as a whole wasn't quite as good. But yeah, I mean, Asuka took some nasty bumps. She took a vicious sunset flip from Sasha. There were some beautiful transitions into the Asuka lock to end the match, but there was a spot where, earlier on in the night, Sasha actually sacrificed herself, and that allowed for, Bayley to hit the small package while Asuka was tied up in the ropes. Here, Bayley kind of ducked out of the way, and because of that, Asuka was able to scrap on the Asuka lock, and just a great finish. It was great because it made Sasha look strong because Bayley kind of betrayed her, but at the same time, it put over Asuka in a huge way that she was able to have 2 matches and still come out with one of the championships. So yeah, definitely good match right there. All right, next up we had Drew McIntyre taking on Randy Orton for the WWE Championship. I thought this was really good. I thought the video package here, this is one of the best video packages that WWE's done in quite some time. It kind of illustrates how valuable a lot of the mic skills and a lot of the promos were leading into this match. McIntyre came off like a great babyface. Orton's promos were edited in very nicely. They even showed Orton, being a prick to some of the fans when he was younger. So I just thought everything about the video package was very well laid out. The stuff about Orton should have been fired a lot more than me, and this definitely had a great sense of realism to it, and I really love the video package. This is a great matchup here. This was a good choice for a main event. Orton definitely had a lot of momentum here, but I don't know. I just feel like the match doesn't have the kind of replay value that I was hoping for. It was good though. They did a lot of great things, especially a lot of the counters. The counters to the RKO, the counters to the Claymore kick were just beautiful here. Just a lot of great work on the leg from McIntyre. Going back to the figure four because you have that Ric Flair connection with him being in the storyline. I thought that was cool. Orton going for the eyes. Orton was very dirty and methodical in this match. He went for the eyes. McIntyre was bleeding from the eyes. There was a spot where McIntyre did a headbutt to Orton, and then Orton got busted open. So you saw a lot of blood in this match, more blood than you've seen in quite some time in a WWE match. But yeah, a little. I don't know. I just felt like they have a better match in them. I felt like it was a little bit too slow at certain parts. I actually watched the match twice, just to make sure. But yeah, I mean, just definitely. I would say this was a really, really good match. Really, really solid. Good atmosphere. It felt like it got a great platform to really deliver in. I would say this was really, really good, but just not quite great. That's kind of how I saw the match. The ending with the backslide, really good stuff there. You had Drew actually countering the punt and catching Orton and then, power bombing him. And I think McIntyre countered the RKO into a backslide, which was another beautiful counter to end the match. But it didn't have, I mean, it definitely opens the door up for a rematch. But at the same time, I think the main problem I had with it just seemed like Orton was a little bit too overprotected. And I don't know, man. It just kind of felt to me like Edge. Someone like Edge had more like seniority over Orton, so I felt like Orton felt a little bit more pressure in the Backlash match. In this match right here, Drew, he doesn't quite have, I don't think he's at a point right now where he could really, boss Orton around, and I felt like it just reflected in the match a little bit for me. I just felt like Orton could have been a little bit more intense in certain spots, but for Orton's age, man, I still think he has it. I still think they both delivered a good matchup right here. I mean, there's really not a lot to complain about. I thought this was solid, just a really, really good match. But I can't say that it was a match of the year candidate. I can't say this is one of Randy Orton's best SummerSlam matches. Even I just can't say that. But it was good stuff. It felt competitive, had a good storyline. There's really not much you can ask for other than what they gave you tonight. But what really shocked me was that they had a video package talking about Keith Lee is going to Raw, and that kind of answered a lot of questions. Because I was kind of shocked that. Keith Lee lost the championship, but, it looks like Keith Lee is going to be taking on Randy Orton at the Payback pay-per-view. And that's another thing. Like, I'm not a big fan of using SummerSlam to set up the next pay-per-view. I've never been a big fan of it. I remember SummerSlam 2006. I felt like that pay-per-view extremely suffered because they used it to set up Unforgiven 2006. And, SummerSlam has such a great history. It's such a... a lot of times it's been an amazing pay-per-view where you saw some great blow-off matches and just a lot of money. I mean, SummerSlam just has an amazing history. So I'm just, the fact that we're getting a pay-per-view next week called a show next week called Payback, I just feel like it's kind of a cheap way to kind of cash in on this Thunderdome. I think the mindset is because the Thunderdome is finished, like they want to cash in on another pay-per-view in this environment. That's the only way I could kind of, justify that. But and then the main event, we had the Fiend, Bray Wyatt, taking on Braun Strowman. This is a Falls Count Anywhere for the Universal Championship. All right, so I talked about Eugene a lot in some of the classic SummerSlam reviews, and I always felt like, that character really like turned a lot of fans off, interfering in some of the classic main event matches back in the day. But this is a situation where I really thought Alexa Bliss could have, actually sparked a lot of interest in this feud because, of her looks and just her personality. I really felt like that was actually something you wanted to see here. So we didn't get that. We just got another generic, monster match between Bray Wyatt and Braun here. No one wants to hear me talk about these two guys, trying to go out there and wrestle. They brought out everything they could for the build up here. It was way over the top, but it's just one of those matches that just didn't deliver. Right? Michael Cole kind of advertised this match as two monsters from a monster movie going at it. But that's just the way it is. I'm trying to think about it. Like a lot of wrestling fans or comic book fans, or they're into, these Marvel movies, and maybe this is what a lot of wrestling fans want to see. But just, I'm at the point right now where I just think I feel like we've moved past this. I feel like, the days of, guys getting pushes because they're jacked up and big and tall and strong, or I felt like we were past that. I felt like we were past the days of someone just putting on a mask and you could put the WWE Championship on him without really earning it. I thought we were past that, but obviously we're not. It's just it was an embarrassing main event for SummerSlam standards. I'm not saying I wanted to see these guys risk their lives, but the bottom line is we've seen guys go out there in the main event and actually, put their bodies on the line and ultimately end up, it's taken a toll on a lot of guys' lives. The kind of effort that a lot of people have put into the main event of a SummerSlam, the standard has been set when you look at the history of SummerSlam, and I just felt like these guys delivered a joke of a main event. I really didn't. I didn't think it was anything special. Braun actually started cutting up the ring. Ultimately, Bray does a Uranagi on the opened up ring, and then he hits the Sister Abigail on the board part of the ring, and that's how the match pretty much ends. And then we have the return of Roman Reigns, who comes out there to spear both guys and kind of pronounce that he's back. And I think it's a good sign, though. I think it's definitely a good sign that Roman is back. Honestly, I haven't really missed Roman Reigns at all. I hate to admit it. I just haven't. But it's a good sign that he's back, because the bottom line is I felt like a lot was missing on this show. I felt like the WWE could have put a better card together of, the WWE could have put on a better card of the talent that was missing than what was the original SummerSlam card right here. You know what I'm trying to say? And I feel like just a lot of, I just feel like WWE has so much talent right now, and we're not seeing a lot of them. For guys like Roman because of leukemia, for guys like Daniel Bryan because of, him taking the paternity leave in the midst of the pandemic, you understand it. But for guys like AJ Styles, not to be a part of 3 pay-per-views in a row was very disappointing. That's one of the reasons I subscribed, was because I thought, this Intercontinental Championship picture looks really strong. The fact that we didn't get Matt Riddle on this card it leaves you scratching your head. And you still have all this talent. And when you look at the AEW card in a couple weeks on September 5th, it looks pretty strong. It really does. But when you look at the AEW roster and compare it to the WWE roster, there's no comparison. And but I've said it time and time again. I'm not going to be overly critical. They get kind of a pass for me because of the pandemic. But if this was the SummerSlam that they put on with a fully healthy roster, knowing you have that much talent, I would say it was unacceptable. But, because this is such a fucked up year, these are just such weird times, you definitely understand it. But I don't know, guys. The main event really left a bad taste in my mouth, and I'm just tired of it. I'm tired of seeing, Bray Wyatt. I've been tired of him for years. And, but, it's not going to stop. I understand a lot of people, just look at the poster. That's all you need to see. I'm not going to deny it. It is a pretty cool looking character, but in terms of him going out there and delivering competitive SummerSlam main events, it's just not the guy you would expect to do that. But sorry I sound so depressed, but I don't know. I lose passion for this company anytime I see a main event like that. But hey, I think that Payback pay-per-view definitely kind of hurt a lot of this show. But yeah, you got some solid stuff on the show. It wasn't a bad show to watch. I just felt like a lot was missing, and the main event was just not worthy of a SummerSlam main event. That's all I have to say. All right.